tradition is so strong. But at the same time, something I did not know about until recently. I didn't know about this until I was watching what Paul had put together for this movie. Everybody's going to want to watch the City of Lost. Temple, City of Lost is going to be very informative. But it was that whole City of David area that I was showing you. The Rothschilds purchased that in the late 1800s. They purchased that whole area, and that family, whatever, still owns that particular area, and they started excavating there because they thought they would find the Ark of the Covenant in that area. Now, that brings up the question: why would they think the Ark of the Covenant would be in that area? Now, because the Jews today, a lot of their legends are saying that the Ark of the Covenant is in some of these catacombs and areas underneath the Dome of the Rock. And there are some, if you ever get a chance to go to Israel and take the Wailing Wall tunnels, sure, it's awesome. Okay, I believe you're being fed ton baloney on that. In fact, another thing you'll see in the documentary. I hope I'm not doing spoilers or anything. I think I'll be okay with me talking about this. But if you go on those Western Wall tunnels, they have a carving in the wall, a Roman inscription. I forgot what it says exactly, but basically showing that was where they housed
Bangkorai
troops
garrison is on
during that time.
lockdown since
I mean,
the
it's
death of
carved
King
right there
Only
in the
Knights of
wall.
St.
I
Helen
forgot
and
what it
members of
says
the royal
exactly,
family are allowed in.
but there's all kinds of
You might
cool things down
The
there
Army of Reachman is
for
just
sure.
a day's march
But this
from the
area
city, and
over
when they
here
get there, it's
in the
not
city
going
of
to be
David,
pretty.
right there's a
We've
good
done
shot
all we
of the
can,
city of
and
David.
frankly, I think it may
Um,
have been in vain.
a lot of that stuff is very unexplored, and the amount of things that they are finding underneath there is astounding.
Who
And
apparently
what I kind of hope is going to happen, what I kind of think could happen, is if they did discover the Ark of the Covenant now. If they ever find the Ark of the Covenant in that area, that would be something that I think would excite the world so much. It would excite the Jewish community so much that I think that would be such a big deal that they would be able to change their beliefs on where the location was and still kind of save face. Because right now, if they're just like, yeah, you know what, it's in the city of David, it's like, wait, why have we been fighting so much for the last 1,000 years? Why have you all been, because they're going to have to admit they've been praying to a Roman fortress for a long time. Go on and banging their heads against the wall over there. But I think finding the Ark of the Covenant would be so big, it would be so interesting, it would excite the world so much that I think everybody would just forget about all that. And that might be the thing it would take to get them to rebuild the temple. So, I mean, like, they might do it over there, but I think it's going to be in the right spot.
I have a theory on that too, because we know that Satan wants to use an ecumenical movement, right? Get the doctrine out, everybody together, we all serve the same God, Jews, Muslims, Catholics, etc., right? And so I think with that deception, some people may know that the Muslims are waiting on their fifth imam. I've also seen indications that the House of Saud, where Saudi Arabia comes from, were tied to Judaism. And, I believe that when this false Messiah shows up, that, he's the Maitreya, the Mishnah, the fifth Imam. There's even Taoism is waiting on an ascended master to arrive, bring everybody together. So I wouldn't be surprised if this would be the thing where even the Muslims said, this is our next prophet, right? This is the one that puts it all together. I really believe that. And so it wouldn't surprise me if they kept the temple there and they said, look, we can dwell together because we all serve this same Messiah, this Christ. Now, in Talmudism, the Babylonian Talmud is the foundation for Judaism today. It is not the Bible. People need to understand the difference. And in the Babylonian Talmud, they are awaiting two different messiahs, if you will. And Joseph as a spiritual prophet, and David as the king, the son of David. And so what's interesting is in the book of Revelation, it tells us specifically you're going to have like that Antichrist king and his religious prophet, the false prophet as well. So there's, Judaism will fall in line with exactly what the Bible is warning us about. about the Antichrist. Now, when somebody says 1948, that's a fulfillment of prophecy, those are God's people, what do you think?
Well, first thing I would say was which prophecy, because if they want to say the budding of the fig tree in Matthew 24, then I'm going to laugh at it, because that's not what that is at all. Now, if they want to talk about like Revelation 13 and the rise of the beast and things like that, obviously I don't think that was fulfilled in 1948, but I definitely think that was a major step in that direction. So I would agree with a lot of my dispensational Zionistic brothers that 1948 was the fulfillment of prophecy. I just wouldn't agree on which prophecy, and that it is a very bad thing. That this is ultimately the world getting a little bit closer to, accepting Antichrist. Because in order for there to be an Antichrist system, we have to restore the temple. We have to have something that we have to have a religion that involves the temple, involves the Messiah. You got to have a man as the Messiah. So they need to have certain of these things in place, and I believe that we are getting closer towards that. And so I find it very troubling that Christians are so supportive of this, that they get excited like this is God doing a work. No, this is God allowing Satan to do a work. I do believe, and I'm telling you, that is why we have so many examples in history where we see things that are very similar, especially in the first century, because of the fact that Satan has been trying to make this happen for a long time. I think Satan has been trying to set in the temple of God since at least Isaiah 14, probably even before that. But he's been trying that. So historically, we can see many times where he got really close, but there's always somebody withstanding him. There's always something withholding him. He is being let, as is spoken of in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. But since the destruction of the temple, that I believe God wanted that to happen. We have not seen any major attempts because he can't do these things without a temple. And I do. I believe that God wanted the gospel going to all the world. God wanted, God, he's been given us this period of time for the gospel to spread and for more people to be saved. And so the removing of that temple, it was a very, very good thing for the world. It was a very, very good thing for Christianity. And in reality, it was a good thing for the Jews. It took away a huge distraction from them. But I believe Satan has always wanted to rebuild it, but he has not been allowed that opportunity. So, again, it's my opinion that it will be in the city of David where it will be built, but I think it very well could be in the on the Temple Mount. I think it's even possible too. They could build it right next to the Dome of the Rock, and a lot of people would think that that's wonderful. But the problem that we've always had historically is we have always interpreted prophecy in some way in light of our current situation because we want these things to happen in our day. And if it were to happen in our day, we know it's very likely that it would look this way. But another possibility that I think, we don't really like to consider just because of the fact that we want all these things to happen soon is that, the secularization of everything. While you do have a lot of your Muslims who are very violent and are ready to fight to the death and all that kind of stuff, you've got a lot that just don't really care that. The thing that was most shocking to us when we went to Jerusalem on this trip is when we found out how few Jews really care about the rebuilding of the temple. They don't care that much. Now, there is a segment of Jews who care very much about that. There are some Jews who care very much about I would say, the fake Temple Mount, and nothing is going to change their mind on it, except maybe find the Ark of the Covenant. But even then, I don't know for sure. But let's just say it's another 100 years. I think that's going to change. I think we'll see more and more of them get secularized And as time goes on, the way things are trending, I do think if the powers that be were to just come along and say, yeah, we're just going to rebuild the temple in the city of David, I think a ton of Jews would be okay with it.
Please help me.
And so one of the things that's fascinating to see right now with all the rise in anti-Semitism and all that kind of stuff, in America, most of your Jews are Democrats and they are non-Zionists. Republicans are way more Zionist than Democrats are, even though most Democrats are, still are supportive of Zionism because of AIPAC. Don't get me going on that. But at the same time, actual Jews in America, they hate all this Zionist stuff because, for one, they don't care about the religious aspect of it. They don't care about the traditions, and it just makes people hate Jews. So it actually causes problems for them whenever the Zionist stuff is being pushed forward. And the only ones that care about that are Zionist Jews, like Netanyahu, and Zionist Christians. And it really is a shame that there is such a thing as Zionist Christians. It really is.
It's almost an oxymoron, in my opinion, because Zionism it's a system to establish a nation without the right covenant for the Antichrist. That's the wrong Christ. For a temple, it's the wrong temple. People are deceived. I mean, I really despise Christian Zionism. Not my brothers that are wrong. There are people that are saved that have the wrong view politically. They watch Fox News, and they're so worried about what's going to happen in earthly Jerusalem, they forget that heavenly Jerusalem is the mother of us all. They forget that Abraham, he was searching for a city whose builder and maker was God, that he saw the promises afar off, but he did not obtain the promises. He didn't get the promised land. Yes, he was on the dirt, but it's not called Holy Land until the Lord is there. Just as the burning bush, the Lord is there, and that's what makes a huge difference. Now, there is a difference between Zionism, Semitism, and Judaism. And I'm going to talk about this for a second because Semitism, or a Semite, would be the descendants of Shem. If you look on Webster's, it actually defines Semitism as a preference for Semites over others. Almost like you could be anti-Semitism. If you say, I don't support the war in Israel, they say, oh, you're a racist, right? They say you're an anti-Semite. But truly, to be a Semite would also mean it's like a reverse racism thing, where they prefer themselves. And, if I say, hey, I'm an Aryan, and I think that makes me better, you say, whoa, look out, we've heard this one before. But that's exactly what's happening in Israel today. Now, I want you to deal first, if you will, with the ethnicity. Because today, if I wanted to convert, I could study Judaism for 2 years, a religion, and convert, and I could move to Israel, and they would give me property. Does that make me an Israelite? Does it make me a Semite? Does it make me a Zionist? So are there, today, do you believe there are truly ethnic Hebrews or Jews? What's your opinion on that terminology?
Yeah, well, I'm sure there are some true ethnic Jews. The problem is I don't know who they are. I don't know how they can prove it. I do know too that you do over in Israel, a lot of your people that I would say are probably more likely to be the ethnic Jews. They're a little darker skinned. Typically, they're not very religious, and they're not Zionists at all. A lot you have your Orthodox Jews that are typically whiter than I am, and but but then too you also have your I don't know what you would call these people exactly, but you have the kibbutzes that are out there that are real popular. Now these are like, and it was so funny. I heard somebody in the news the other day use this term, and this is the way I've always explained. You have like your hippie Jews. Okay? Now who are these hippie Jews? Well, pretty much anybody, if they will sign on to certain things, they will let you be a Jew, and you go over there because they need people settling that area. Because the more people they get in that area, the more control they have, the easier it is for them to claim certain things. You hear a lot of these illegal settlements that they have going on that are illegal according to international law. And I don't know all the details of what makes them legal or illegal. The reality is, though, the more people they can get over there, the harder it's going to be for the international community to say, you got to get rid of them. Or they build houses, we can't just displace all these people. Now we've got a humanitarian crisis. So a lot of those people, they're literally like hippies, that they've just decided we're Jews, and we're going to go over and we're going to live in these kibbutzes, and we're going to live off the land. And let me just tell you something. Here's the dirty little secret. The Zionist Jews, they don't even care about them. They don't see them. I think they know they're not ethnic Jews, but they're just kind of useful pawns for them because they need Jews over there. And most Jews don't want to go there. You know, they're just not interested. They're happy wherever they're at in different parts of the world. And so historically, there a lot of the persecutions that have risen in different places, it has been, the Jews have been behind it in order to make them uncomfortable so they will go settle in Israel. And so the thing is, too, and I hate to bring this up, but on October 7th, nobody can figure out why it took Israel so long to respond. I think we know why. It's because they needed this to happen. I do believe the Arabs did it. I believe that the Hamas did these things, but I believe they allowed it to happen. You know what? It was a lot of it was at this music festival. These were like Jewish hippies. When we think of Jews in Israel, we're always thinking about the people at the Wailing Wall. We're thinking about those religious ones. That is a completely different group. The people that live out in the kibbutzes and things, they're very different. And the Jews, they don't care about them. So, the variety of Jews is a very complicated thing. And there are
there's a spectrum, right?
Right.
Because they actually had their liberal reform in society, and it's a big part of who they are. In fact, Netanyahu, when he came to America, wasn't he praising, the false women's rights movement and the sodomites, and praising the things that just makes America look bad, but he knows how to pull the heartstrings. So you already have the right side, because they think when they bless Israel, they're blessing God, and that's not true. And so what do they want to do? They want to get the liberal Democrat. They want those warmongers on their side also.
Hope to be done here
Right.
soon.
Yeah, and so Benjamin Netanyahu, he is a great representative of Zionist Jews. He's not that religious. He doesn't even wear a yarmulke and cover his head or any of that stuff. So he's a Zionist Jew. But then you have like your Orthodox Jews.
We still have
These are the
room
ones
if
that you
expect
see
to
in there
travel.
praying at the Wailing Wall and doing that thing all the time. And they
Well,
do it because they mean it. They're not like the politicians that go there and visit just to get their picture taken and stuff like that. And now most of your Orthodox Jews, they don't care about the rebuilding of the temple. They believe it's just going to happen when Messiah comes. A lot of them are not Zionists. They do not believe in killing people to get the land. To them, that is
It's not a good day
violating
to travel,
one of the Ten
but
Commandments.
travel
Thou
we
shalt not
must.
kill. So they're against that kind of thing. And then you have like your secular Jews. That is what Tel Aviv is for. They hate Netanyahu. Listen, if it wasn't for the war going on right now, Netanyahu would not be the prime minister of Israel. He was about October 7th was the best thing that could have happened for Netanyahu. It made where he's been able to hang on to power. They were already trying to get rid of him. They were about to get rid of him. So like when you go into these modern cities throughout Israel that are very modern, most of these people are Jews too. They don't give a rip about Zionism. They don't even mind the Palestinians that much as long as they're not trying to blow them up. But they're that's where all the sodomites are. That's where they are. They're very secular, and they're a completely different breed, and they don't support Netanyahu. So my question too, when people are like, "I stand with Israel," well, which one? That's like saying, well, because I love America, and I'm from Canada, I stand with the Democrats. Well, wait a minute. Half this country is against that agenda, and isn't for that. We think that's bad for America. You're not supporting America. Well, a good chunk of Israel, when you're supporting Netanyahu, They see that as bad for their country, and they don't want him there. And he is basically a dictator, just desperately hanging on to power, and he will sacrifice. He will have no problem sacrificing a lot of his own people to stay in power. He has done that. He will continue to do that. You just had these other Jews that were killed. I forgot what they were called exactly, but they were like Arabic Jews. Where a bunch of them got killed. Of course Israel's freaking out about it. They don't care. They're using this excuse to go kill thousands of Palestinians.
So I believe that mystery Babylon that we see in the book of Revelation is referring to end times earthly Jerusalem. I believe it's the old Jerusalem under a false covenant. It tells us that a woman rides the beast, and that woman is Jerusalem, and the beast is the Antichrist. And as you look at all the descriptions, there are certain things that could have only happened in Jerusalem. That's one of the major reasons I believe that. Peter called Jerusalem Babylon. There's many indicators for it. But when you get to chapter 18, and I'll be preaching that this Wednesday in my Revelation series, it talks about how the Antichrist established his 10 kings. And with those 10 kings, it said that they hated the horn and they burned the horn. And so my interpretation is the Antichrist and his government, his world order, will use the people of Jerusalem, of every ethnicity and religion, first to establish him as the king, the Messiah. Then he will cause a war, and he doesn't care for the fact he will destroy them, he will hurt them, he does not love them. And listen, if you're a Bible-believing Christian, you need to, instead of just saying we need to turn Gaza into a parking lot, hurry up and do Iran, we need to be praying that the souls would be saved on both sides of this. All right,
Two of my guardians investigated
Israelites,
sites.
Merrick
Figure
and
out
Aleph
that
the
Jesus
best
Christ
the guild
has to offer.
Messiah,
meet up with them outside of
and
Daggerfall.
Muslims would see he's not just a great
I know you'll
prophet,
change the
he
river's
is the
course,
Son of God, and that ought to be
They're
our
investigating a powerful. They are the 10. Yes.
Yeah.
A powerful benefactor.
There is nothing
He's a
for the
proud
Jews
Vanguard warrior.
in Jerusalem,
A powerful
nor is there
benefactor.
anything for the Muslims
She hates the
in
size
Jerusalem.
of the task.
They
Our benefit.
in Hebrews it calls them to follow him talking about Christ without the camp, bearing his reproach. Leave those things of the temple behind. They're not necessary. What took place, what was done to take care of sins, it happened outside that eastern gate, across the valley, right there, I believe, somewhere in the Silwan village, Jesus Christ was sacrificed on a cross. And we don't need to worship in that mountain. There's no need for Jerusalem. And again, to listen to Christians, just I know of Baptist preachers who literally they go to places like Ukraine and they go preach to Jews to return to the land. There are Baptist preachers encouraging Jews to return to Israel. And that again, that's what they're doing. That is a campaign. And just like what we have going on with immigration in this country, a lot of these people who are coming into this country are getting paid to come into this country. They're trying to change the demographics of this nation because they want to change the politics of this nation. That's just the reality. Okay? Now, you get called racist and all kinds of names for even saying things like that, but that's absolutely what is happening right now. Why would you pay somebody to come to this country to go on the welfare system? Because they are trying to change the demographics, the politics, and everything in this country. That's exactly what they're doing in Israel. They're not reproducing children fast enough. They need people moving to that area, moving into these houses, settling these places, and the more they do, and then the more they can kind of slowly take over these Palestinian territories. So basically, what happened originally with Zionism, the Jews legally bought up a bunch of that land, and then they successfully irrigated it. They made it flourish. They made the land valuable. And yes, a lot of the Arabs are upset. They feel like they got cheated. Well, that's what happens when you don't take care of the land. And you can't just, say we claim all this while you're doing nothing with it. And so they did. And so they got these places to where they're building houses and things, but you got to have people inhabit. So the more Jews that are moving over there. That's all. Those are the only people they're going to let in. They're only going to let in Jews. They're not going to do like America is doing.
And so,
But we let anybody.
clarify that statement, because biblical Israel is definitely different than national Israel, current common day national Israel. The Jews of today, or the religion of Judaism, you would also agree, is totally different from the Judaism of the Old Testament. Is that right?
Oh yeah, 100% different. In fact, because the thing that we forget, somewhere along the line, somebody got the idea that genetics somehow has to do with being of Israel. That was never the case in the Bible. I was like, well, Abraham, see, well, so was Ishmael. So was Esau. Okay? So no, it was never about genetics. It was about being in the covenant. It was, and part of being in the covenant is following certain commands, following certain laws, and it was never just a genetic thing. And so the reality is, Israel, the one who received the inheritance, he commanded his children to follow Shiloh when he came. He didn't do it. Israel, they were under the law of Moses. Moses called on them to follow that prophet, like unto him, Jesus Christ, when he came. So whenever those people rejected Jesus Christ, they broke the covenant. They were cut off from the people. And so the reality is, what ends up happening after the first century, biblically speaking, legally speaking, is we have a whole new religion that got started. And it was one that was prophesied that was come. It's known as, in the biblical term, is Antichrist. And we see in 1 John, where he said, we know that Antichrist shall come, even now. Are there many Antichrists? So we know it's the last time. Why? Because Antichrist has come. And that was what, if you want to call it Judaism, let's call it apostate Judaism. When you go, if you're a Baptist and then you forsake everything the Baptists teach, you're no longer a Baptist. And whatever it is that you morphed into, that's a new thing.
Back so
When
soon, comrade.
Jews rejected Jesus as the Messiah, and they continued another practice, that was not them continuing being Jews. That was them starting a new religion. And so Christianity is older than modern day Judaism, and that's why I like to. I think if you want to clarify what it is, well, it's Babylonian Talmudic Judaism, if you want to call it that at all. And so, because people don't understand how covenants work, they don't understand how things work legally, they are mistakenly associating the modern nation of Israel. They are connecting it with the Israel of the Old Testament, and that's wrong. And one of the reasons too, Christians are supporting the massacring of the Palestinians is because to them, it's Israel defeating Amalek. Wiping out Amalek. That's why they call it Amalek.
The Philistines are coming. The Philistines are coming.
No, they are not Amalek. The curses on Amalek do not apply to these people. The prophecies against Edom, those things were fulfilled, during the time of the Babylonians. Isaiah prophesied about those things and judgment that was going to come on them. Those things already happened. Those people got what was coming to them. And under the new covenant, those curses and things, they're not a thing anymore. A new nation was started, a new covenant was brought in, and you're blessed if you're with Christ and you're saved, and you're cursed if you're not. And we have no command under this new covenant to go and possess a nation militarily, defeat our, kill our religious enemies, and things like that. That is not Christian at all. And
to be the peacemakers.
Yes, and what they are doing is not Judaism like it was in the Old Testament. It's absolutely the same. In fact, Christianity is what Judaism was supposed to turn into, because they were supposed to do everything that prophet like unto Moses said. And so if Jesus said things like, blessed are the peacemakers, if Jesus told us to, get away from possessing these lands and all that kind of stuff, and to follow Christ without the camp, then that is, in reality, we are the true Judaism. We are the reformed Judaism. If we want to real biblical and technical terms, we're Reformed Judaism.
Or fulfilled. We fulfilled these promises by receiving the Christ that came. And he didn't just come. God is not a racist, he's not a respecter of persons. And the benefit that Israel had, what's the advantage? Well, they have the Word of God. They have the Word of God. They have a promise of salvation. And they, as a missionary nation, were commanded to take it to other nations, and they failed. The scribes and the Pharisees hijacked biblical Judaism. They were trying to get people to establish it by works. Here in Romans 9, it says they are not all Israel which are of Israel. Why? He says, that is, they which are the children of the flesh, these are not the children of God. We are the children of the promise. We have received the promise. Now we have the same covenant, but it's a better covenant with better promises. It speaks better things than Abel. This covenant and these promises of salvation by faith in the Son of God have always existed. Adam knew it. He walked with God. At the same time as him, and that is not the pre-trib rapture as is tied together with Zionism, unfortunately. There are a lot of people in Reformed theology, Calvinism, that don't have the Zionistic problem, but many of them have a gospel problem, where they believe that God picks them to be saved, and anybody that dies early, God picks to go to hell. So, generally speaking, Christianity is very confused. You go to the dispensational crowd, and they're messed up on end times. Some even saying that Israel can be saved today by works. You go to the other side in Reformed theology, and their salvation doctrine is end times theology a little bit better, but many of those end up being post-tribulation or post-millennial or amillennial. Now, what's wrong? Where is the error? What's the warning you would give somebody that's moving towards amillennialism? That's not a salvation issue, but what would you give as a warning to those?
Right. Well, I do think I kind of understand why people are moving that way because, as you mentioned before, a lot of what's being taught in premillennialism is just foolish and it's very Israel-centered. They make everything all about Israel. And unfortunately, most of your defenders of premillennialism that are out there are spewing a bunch of nonsense about Israel. And so the reason people get messed up on all these things, it's because it's not that we don't, we're always strawmanning the other side saying they don't believe God's going to keep his promise. No, the question is, how is he going to keep his promise? And so, where a lot of the premillennial crowds have gone wrong is they have they've answered the question of why a millennium with, well, it's all Israel is living. And that's just technically wrong. So the amillennial, I think they've swung the pendulum too far in the other direction. A lot of times we respond to some kind of false teaching by going so far the other direction, we go into another false teaching. And so I think what amillennials are doing is they're failing to follow the consistency that we see with prophecies in the Bible. Throughout the Bible, we see God declaring things as so before they come to a physical fruition. Like when he told Abraham, I have made thee a father of many nations. Therefore, Abraham was a father of many nations. Well, I mean, yeah, God made him one, but he also still didn't have any children yet, and he hadn't even become a nation himself so much. He just been declared one by God. But it doesn't. But what ended up happening long term? Well, he literally became a father of many nations, and that was physically fulfilled through Jesus Christ. And so, I believe when it comes to premillennialism, or amillennialism, is we have tried to help God's prophecies of the past by changing what they are. We're kind of doing the same thing that Sarah did. God gave this prophecy about Abraham having a child, but it can't come through her. So what she told Abraham, go have a child with Hagar. Well, no, God's going to do this. He's going to do it through Sarah. So, as time has gone on and things have not happened in our time like we would like to see it happen, we try to help God out. We try to help make His prophecy come true, and we've gotten away from the literal, and we've gone with the figurative. And it's like, no, God doesn't need our help in making His prophecies come to pass. They're going to come to pass, like He said. And you just can't get away from the clear, very specific language that we see in relation to these prophecies. I believe Jesus is going to rule from Zion with a rod of iron. I believe that He is going to be victorious over His enemies. And I believe we are going to rule and reign with Him. And I'm sorry, but when we're on this earth being persecuted, when we're seen as the filth of this world, that's not the fulfillment of that. We are going to have our day. Abraham is going to have his day. He is going to receive that land that he was promised. And I don't believe it's just some spiritual thing or just some heavenly thing. No, I believe it's something that we're going to experience here on this earth. And so in the amillennial world, they are very good at teaching a lot of spiritual truths that absolutely apply to today. Or I believe they go wrong is when they reject a literal physical fulfillment of those things in the future. That's just not consistent with the way prophecy has been fulfilled throughout the Bible. Throughout the Bible, we would see an immediate, present spiritual fulfillment, but we always saw physical, literal fulfillment in the future. And I think we should hold up to that.
Yeah, multiple layers. Now, Fox News, I believe, has a big effect on Christianity, especially those that are veterans. Look, I don't have a problem with vets. I love vets, and we need a strong military to protect ourselves from the enemies we're making by bombing other countries. Blessed be the peacemakers. Now, here's the problem. Fox News pushes this dominionism, this kingdom theology. It's a post-millennial view that we have to bring in the kingdom by sword. Post-millennialism and replacement theology kind of go hand in hand all their life. Moving for replacement theology, don't mean it like the original. Jerusalem is under attack. If we don't defend her, oh no, we can't let them do this. Oh boy, we better go do that. And it gets Christians all hyped up and worried about what's going on in earthly Jerusalem. And frankly, they need to worry about the souls that are in their own city. And they need to worry about corruption and our American government.
I am Shalador, young one, and I think you'll do nicely.
It's this
Return that book to Velost. Tell her
people
fire will show her the
hope
words.
and false gold. And they quote scriptures wrong. I want to take your question real quick. This young lady on the channel here, Lisa Daughtry, do you two believe we are at the end? What would you say?
Well, I believe we're in the last days, but I believe we've been in the last days for a long time. And, if I may use that question to kind of take this opportunity to briefly speak of something. This is something else I want to cover pretty soon. But in your full preterist world, they love to bring up all of these passages about, I forgot how they put it exactly.
Mary Dominion.
Come quickly, slowly come to pass, all of that stuff. I think it's very clear what Jesus is talking about, what the Bible is talking about when it uses those terms. I especially think that's the case too when we look at the prophecies of Daniel. In the prophecies of Daniel, in chapter 2, he makes it very clear about how that prophecy of the image of Nebuchadnezzar, we see the term times of peace, and basically that is a reference to God raising up and taking down the global kingdom. That's clearly what that is about. And so I do believe that there is a final global kingdom that is going to come that God is going to judge, and that's going to be His way of judging the world. He's going to defeat that final kingdom. Now, interestingly enough, since the Roman Empire, we've not had a global kingdom. It's really pretty amazing. Babylonians, you have the Persians, you have the Greeks, and then you have the Roman Empire. Since then, we've not had a global kingdom. But I believe that when the Bible is referencing all those things, we're always focused on the rapture and the stuff that applies to us, and that's fine. But ultimately, I think what is we are seeing Revelation, the rise and fall of that final kingdom. That final kingdom is not going to last very long at all. And I think that's that once those final prophecies kick off, it is going to happen shortly. It is going to quickly come to pass. And I think that is very clear in the scriptures. Now, here's what is a mystery. And that's why people get confused and look at the Olivet Discourse, but when he talks about the first century and he switches to the end. Well, you almost can't tell because the fact Jesus says something very important in that no man knows the day of the hour. He is the Son. And so when it comes to this period of time we're living in, I do believe that we have to put it. But we did it on kind of a prophetic once the clock starts ticking on things, everything is going to happen very fast. So, yes, we are in the last times, but don't mistake the last times for the final 7 years or anything like that. We have no idea
To the
when the
side.
clock is going to start ticking. But when it does happen, it's all going to happen fast. And it's going to be a crazy time. So I do believe we're in the last days. I believe at any point the clock will start ticking on those things, and we will have a very short time left. But I don't believe that final 7 years has started.
Amen. Yeah, I believe that we'll have a final New World Order, if you will, that will come up. And let me just do this. I'm going to share this. This is a timeline I put together because I'm a visual person and I need it to better understand it for myself. And so that's what this started as. And you can get it. I just put it in the chat room there, worldlibreybaptist.com, trib.jpg. And with that, I just want to, and I don't mind getting your opinion. I know we may differ slightly on certain things. Let me put this full screen if I can. And let's just zoom in. So I believe that there is sort of a new world order now. But I do also believe you're right. World government global reset. Those things are in motion, but they have not completely happened yet. And so one of the first things I put on my chart was there is a new world order coming through here, and then that first sign that we're given is the Antichrist. You agree with that? This is an indicator.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's the false Christ, the false Messiah. If we're that close, then he's probably somebody that exists today that people know, but perhaps they don't know that he is who the Judaism will receive as the Messiah.
Well, something my dad always said, and I agree with this. My dad believes Satan's always had a guy ready, because he doesn't know the time either. And that's, again, we're seeing that there is a new world order system that they're trying to do. And so things like the United Nations, all these for sure are steps towards that. But that's ultimately because Satan has been trying. Satan's been trying nonstop for this stuff to happen. And so, yeah, we're going to continue seeing certain things fall into place, but it's not going to be until God gives them the green light. And I believe, I believe that's how it's going to kick off with there will be that individual that will finally start having his way, the Antichrist, and making these things come to pass.
Amen. So the Antichrist, then we'll see a world war, a famine, the death of 25%. We're not going to miss that. 25%. I like to say, like a good cop, bad cop. Now listen, the New World Order has been bad to you, but I'll be good. And he'll show up and he'll say, you have to stop the sacrifice. That's blasphemous because I am the Christ. As he begins to take these titles and prove it to the world. through lying signs and wonders, he will try to prove that he is the Messiah, and he wants the world to think that he is the son of David, the son of Abraham, the son of Joseph. They're going to use all these terms and pseudo fulfillment. And then, of course, after that, we have the return of the Lord, the return of the Lord, and then God will begin to pour out his wrath. Generally speaking, do you agree with that timeline?
Yes, I mean, in my opinion, I think that's how things are going to play out. I don't, uh, while the seals don't have any timeline associated with them, uh, I can't find any consistent evidence of that happening throughout history or anything like that. I definitely don't think it happened for centuries. Because I strongly hold to the late day two of Christ's revelation. And there's nothing that resembles all those things happening in the first century anyway. But in my opinion, I do think it's going to play out like that.
Well, now tell me about that. The date of Revelation, this is very important. Your opinion on that can actually change how you see a lot of prophecy. Historically, most accurately, from all I can tell, I believe it looks like it was written about 65. At this resurgence, and was it influenced by Catholics? This is my main question. That it was written in 70 AD, or what? Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I did a big study on that a while back, where I looked a lot into Irenaeus' writing. So I was reading all the different sources people were using to go with the late date, and everybody like Fox Book of Martyrs quotes Irenaeus, Eusebius, quotes Irenaeus. Everybody. If you read Irenaeus, it is unmistakable that it was written after 97 AD. I understand that's not inspired writing. Preterists like to talk about the internal evidence, and that's another great conversation where I don't think that will let you stand on it. But historically, there's just no evidence for the early dating whatsoever. Now, I am in the process of reading through the book. There's a book by Kenneth Gentry. I can't think of what it's called off the top of my head. Everyone refers to that. Everyone that I have come across who is an early date proponent all reference Kenneth Gentry's book. Now, I'm not through it yet, but I am reading that book as objectively as I possibly can. And I'm telling you, so far, it is very underwhelming what he is presenting. It does not work at all. And
You think there's a pre-opposition? You think they're coming to need evidence to prove what I already believe.
right. So it's like, let's just admit it. Us as biblicists, if we read something historically that contradicts the Bible, we're going to leave the Bible over history. Well, they feel the same way. And they feel that the internal evidence supports it being written before 70 AD. Okay, we can have a conversation about that. The problem is, though, whenever they look at history, they are trying to correct. They're trying to correct history based on their interpretation of the scriptures. Like, well, this is probably what they meant. You can take. There's one statement. I don't have it in front of me. There's the most famous statement that everyone refers to, where from Irenaeus, where he shows it was written during the reign of Domitian. Everybody is always taking that one statement and saying that could be translated this way. He could have meant this, and they're always telling you all the ways it could have been translated. Kind of like they do with the text of the Bible. Well, here's the thing about that. I get it. History is not inspired writing, but that's not the only evidence. If you read, I read a bunch of Irenaeus' writings, and so it's like, well, okay, maybe that was a mistaken translation there, but you're saying that was a mistaken translation over here, a mistaken translation over here. The way we are interpreting that phrase that he said right there is consistent with everything that you read from Irenaeus. He made other references to John and Domitian, a lot of these different things. And so it's a desperately weak argument And so basically, for the early day people, they don't have zero historical, and that history does in fact contradict. Again, Bible trumps history, but the simple fact is there is no historical evidence for the early date. Now, some people they use some stuff. Uh, Gentry he pulled some stuff from history uh, and some of the cities that are referenced in Revelation, but that stuff was so weak. It's not even worth looking into. His arguments that he gave, but most of it's the internal evidence. It's not there. They're just they really love the seven kings. Five or four, one is. They're just interpreting that whole thing wrong, and they're interpreting that completely inconsistent with prophecy in Daniel, for example. In Daniel, when it talks about the kings, when you go to the first prophetic prophecy in Daniel, chapter 2, you have the head of gold. Nebuchadnezzar said, "You are that head of gold." Okay, he was that king. But then when you get to the Medes and Persians, that wasn't about an individual; it was about another kingdom. Because after Nebuchadnezzar, you had evil Merodach, you had Belshazzar, and one other over that time period. So there were other kings in between the different kingdoms, but yet they were referred to as kings. So that's something the Bible does sometimes. When it references kings, it's reference to kingdoms. In Revelation, when it talks about the seven mountains, okay, those seven mountains, those represent seven kingdoms, not seven kings. It's seven global kingdoms. And when it says five are fallen and one is, because five global kingdoms had fallen and one was still in power during that time, and it was the Roman Empire.
So I preached about that on the previous Wednesday. Actually, we had Pastor DeVries last Wednesday. Prior to that, I preached on Revelation 17. The city on seven hills, right, is what you commonly hear. Well, that's Rome. Clearly, it got to be Rome. Well, Jerusalem is on seven hills also. And there's like 30 or 40 major cities around the world on seven hills. But the indication of the spiritual kingdoms is obviously how the Bible's interpreting that. People they just have it stuck in their mind. It has to be Rome. It's not because it's anything, but that actually came from Rome and from Protestants, which come from their Bible believers through the ages. They always saw that the literal Antichrist sitting in a literal temple, that would be apostasy. If I start sacrificing a lamb for salvation, you're going to call me a heretic. But yet we've got Christians that are somehow supporting these groups that pay for that. It just blows my mind.
Yeah, no, and at the end of the day, if Revelation is written after 70 AD, starters have nothing. I mean, how in the world are you going to claim everything in Revelation is about the destruction of Jerusalem, it's prophesying the destruction of Jerusalem when it was written 25 years after the destruction? They have absolutely nothing. Now, here's the thing: even if it's written before 70 AD, it still doesn't prove everything they preach is right. But if it's written after, it, right there, definitely proves them wrong. And so they can't have that. And all the internal evidence, that is something I want to do in the near future. I've just gotten sidetracked. I need to finish that book. I want to finish the book. I want to hear out Gentry. I might even have him on the podcast. And I like to talk about some of these things. But I mean, so far I am very underwhelmed. But I feel like while I am convinced that Revelation was written after 70 AD, I would tell people, hey, I'm willing to change on anything if you show me the evidence. And I feel like this Gentry book is like the final thing I need to look into, because everyone who says it's not,
You're
but it
already
is
proving your
70
worth.
AD, they're all going there. So
Labyrinthian's father,
he's the
spell
source.
mirrors. The
So,
spell writers have
I'm
cast
checking.
the book
I
into
like to check the source.
Shalador fell.
Apostolic Book of Martyrs.
He and Berean, right?
Yeah, all those things. They led me to Irenaeus, and Irenaeus' writing is crystal clear. It was in 95 AD, And
Irenaeus again proves a historic premillennial that there will be tribulation before the return of Christ.
Mm.
There are many fundamentalists that are attaching to another section of Irenaeus, taking it out of context, and saying, we'll be out of here before anything goes wrong. Toward Israel, they're God's people, and it's like the Zionistic dispensational fundamentalists, their eyes are blinded. In part until the Antichrist comes in, then they're going to say, "Oh no, I was wrong. That's the Antichrist. I thought I was supposed to be out of here." What was the role of the Rothschilds in this whole process?
well, I mean, I think
What
they
is
were
the fire
obviously
revealed?
big funders of these things for sure. You know, they had big money. They had a lot of political
To the center.
influence. You know, they were behind the whole Balfour
First,
Declaration
we attune your
um,
spirit to
that
shallow
kind of
laws.
got a lot of these things started. And you
When
know,
you're set, use
you know,
the
one
orb
thing that
before you.
you know, I don't want to speculate because I don't want to just because it is speculation. I don't want to freak people out, but I don't want to look like conspiracy theorists.
Do
But
it.
it is
I
horrifying
was right. I
when
can
you
sense it.
look into
Yes.
the amount
The aura
of
around you glows with good
influence
fortune.
a lot
What
of
I
these
hope to
high-up
accomplish as the
Jews
storm
have
rages.
had in our
I
political
they are
system.
being held in the
And
careful
I mean,
to
the
be-
reality is
I
too,
know it.
even
I
they
lay
even
low
got
and
guys
won't
like J.
waste
Frank
my time
Norris,
to protect
who
my
was a
legacy.
big supporter
While the
and promoter of
skill was-
Zionism. They have helped fund, you know, things like the Scofield Bible. When you see the pressure they put on political leaders, and the thing you get called a conspiracy theory when you say this stuff, but APAC, APAC's not a conspiracy theory. Okay, the American Israel, what is it? American Israeli Political Alliance Committee.
How quaint.
They are powerful. Go watch Thomas Massey's interview that everybody hated with
Well, what
Tucker
is it?
Carlson,
Here for
where he
some
talks
noble
about all
purpose,
the
no doubt.
congressmen having their own, basically APAC
Spellbound
babysitter.
after it.
We just saw one
Close
of
if
the
you can,
squad
though you may want to
just
deal
lost
with
her
those
seat.
scams
I mean,
first.
the squad, those members of the squad are pretty popular. They're from very liberal districts where they, you know, it's easy for them to get elected because they're so liberal. The one that just got voted out.
Yeah, where they there's the most expensive race to history to date, where she got
Yes.
kicked because she spoke up against the Israel war.
And she didn't get defeated. She didn't get defeated by a Republican. She got beat in a primary.
She was
by a Democrat, by an APAC funded Democrat. They fund Democrats and Republicans, and basically, you know, APAC's not stupid. There are some areas where they are not going to get a Republican elected, and so typically, you know, in these real liberal areas, it's easy for like the AOCs and people like that to get elected, but what they end up doing is they end up just putting up another Democrat against them, and they don't care how liberal they are. They don't care what they do to America. But they better support it. But yeah, Cori Bush, she lost, and it was all because of APAC money. The amount of money that they spent
You'd make an adequate house
to
servant. I
in
don't
these
suppose you'd
elections,
consider it.
influence
The
elections,
pay is pity.
they are
The
very
domes, you see,
powerful.
just doing the most.
And you know, while APAC, I don't know how long they've been
Right
around.
this way.
A lot of these Jewish influence groups, they've been doing this kind of thing, you know, for the last 150 years,
And please,
and we
try
shouldn't
not
be
to make a
shocked.
mess of
We shouldn't be
things.
shocked by it all. And this confuses people so much because, you know, you Fox News Baptists, bless your hearts, but you know, you see those
Happy adventuring.
anti-Semitic AOCs and Cori Bushes and Omar,
I'm so glad we had
whatever
this.
her name,
I am Lord.
Omar lady. You see all that, and they're always standing against Israel. And so you being a well-trained Fox News Baptist, you know you always have to take the opposite position of people like that. But the reality is, you know, sometimes even those crazy liberals, you know, there's some things they understand is wrong, and what is going on in Israel is in fact wrong, you know. And obviously, what they hate about it, their motivations are different than people like myself. But either way, our country is so bought off. Our political leaders are so bought off by Israel. It is absolutely astounding. It's amazing that people can have dual citizenship, and they don't have to renounce that, be in leadership in America. But you do over in Israel. You have to renounce your American citizenship and all that.
And renounce Jesus as
And
the
you
Christ. Yeah,
Yeah.
have to. And we had this title of nobility. We didn't want outside foreign influences in our government, but it is here. There's nothing you can do about it. We have all these political action committees that raise the money, and they're the influencers. They're paying these people well to favor them when it comes to passing bills. And so what are we doing? We're sending billions of dollars all around the world, not just for war, but for abortion and all sorts of other political change. And now America has become a propaganda machine with our money, and it's not even money, it's our debt. Promising our children will pay it, so we can go start a war somewhere else. We're making enemies, and it really is sad we come to. And AIPAC, it's, you say, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist. Well, let's do this. Let's not be a conspiracy denier, okay? We can be a conspiracy realist, that two or more have gathered together in private to work against others for harm. And it is affecting our country. It may even start a civil war in our country, those that are for Israel versus for Palestine. I'm not for either one politically. They both need to be saved. And so, I mean, there was a letter back in the day between Giuseppe Mazzini and Albert Pike about establishing this Mohammedanism versus Zionism and using it to dismantle religion so they can introduce the pure doctrines of Lucifer. And when, I think that's the agenda. How can we establish the Antichrist? Well, let's dismantle religion by making people sick of it. And you know what they're going to do? They're going to destroy the people of Jerusalem, whether you like them or not, on both sides. They're all going to be wiped out. They're going to be killed. Their souls are lost. And any Christian that is politically supporting Zionism, there's blood on your hands. I hate to say it. We need to wake up to this, and we need to wake up pastors as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And they do. The people in Israel, they don't want this stuff. They don't like it. They're not for it. So I was just asked, which Jews are you supporting? Which Israel are you supporting? And the reality is, like your husband, you fought me Baptist. I know you're never going to admit that that's what you are. But when you are supporting Israel, you are actually standing with Netanyahu. That's the part of Israel you support. Majority of this country does not like him. They want to get rid of him. You think you're standing with those Orthodox Jews praying at the Wailing Wall. They are not with you. They don't want Netanyahu. They're not pushing Zionism. You are actually, when most Baptists say, I stand with Israel, they are actually standing with Zionism. That's what they're standing with. Now, most Baptists won't call themselves Zionists. Some will, but a lot of them won't. I didn't even know what the term Zionism was until I watched Marching to Zion. When that came out, I had, not long before that, I had, changed my position on Israel, but I never called myself a Zionist. I wasn't even familiar with that term. But I definitely would have qualified as one. I had the stand with Israel mentality, which actually meant Netanyahu. And so, just think about how offended we would be as independent fundamental Baptists, right wingers, conservative, or whatever, if some person from China came over and they're like, hey, we love you guys, we stand with you, and we show our support by waving a Democrat flag and holding up a Kamala Harris sign. It's like we're gonna be offended by that. You don't stand with us. We're against her. Well, when Americans go around with their I stand with Israel attitude, no, they're standing with Netanyahu. You just offended a lot of Jews, a lot of Israel. You just offended them by that. So just admit that you're standing with a political party. You're standing in another country, and it's one that is not religious. It's one that is, and
Does this
one
mean
that
you
has
have the books?
a ton of blood.
Tests?
on his hands.
Not good.
They had a
Not
ton of blood. And think
Zoxus.
about
In
this.
the meantime, keep an eye
You know,
out.
God wouldn't let David
Pardon
build
me,
the
I'm
temple
terrified.
because
Well, look
of
on the
all the
bright
blood that he had shed. If God was behind any of this temple stuff, you think he's going to let Netanyahu build it? You know, there's absolutely no way. But either way, I don't think Netanyahu really gives a rip about building the temple. However, if Netanyahu were to build the temple, or to get behind the rebuilding of the temple, I believe it would be because he knows that would be such a massive thing for Israel, and it would get people looking at them, recognizing them as the authority, and probably even get a lot of people to move over there. But yeah, he doesn't care about that stuff.
Your
He would
timing is
he would
impeccable.
advance the rebuilding of the temple if he felt it would be a positive for his political ideology.
Well, and I think the main
I'd
problem
hoped
is
to
your
find
Fox
you
News
here,
Baptist, which they bought this half Catholic doctrine,
Blast has
half
finished.
Zionist doctrine, because
Blast
they watch
did it.
Fox
She did
News.
most of it.
They're deceived in their end times philosophy, their salvation doctrine. It can be affected by this. I mean, salvation is by faith alone in the Lord Jesus Christ. We have a Jesus-centered prophecy view. There is a future to come. Those that do not see Jesus in all prophecy, those that want to either read themselves into it, whatever's happening today, or those that now are focusing on Israel, and Israel-focused prophecy. This is the problem. And wouldn't you agree that, was it perhaps, Pastor McMurtry, back in the day, you had more of an Israel-focused view of prophecy, seeing this nation to come as the fulfillment, and when you recognize, is that where you were before you changed?
Yeah, and people don't like when you say that, they take offense to that, and I understand that, but here's the thing. Go to any pre-trib conference. Go to any pro-Israel conference. And I promise you, you will hear more headlines read than scriptures read. You will hear more talk about what's happening over in Israel right now on October 7th and Netanyahu. You're going to hear more talk about that than you are going to hear expounding on the scriptures. That is a fact. And it is nauseating. And so, again, I had, Pastor Wampler on the program a while back, and, he takes issue with that. And I understand what he's saying. I get that, and maybe it's not completely fair. That's not what they're trying to do, but in reality, that is kind of what's happening. And I don't believe guys like Pastor Wampler would do this if he was preaching at a prophecy conference. I think he knows better, even though he disagrees with us on some things. But just go to any pre-trib prophecy conference and just keep track of scriptures read and headlines read. The apostles referred to, or news sources and politicians referred to. It's so Israel-centric. It's absolutely nauseating, and then it always comes down to, we got to stand with them. We've got to, and they
Brother, I was just at a major conference, the very fundamental King James Bible, and a lot of things right, especially salvation, and actually going out and soul winning. A lot of good guys there. And I got my family, we got up and left this one point. This guy was praising thermonuclear war. Praise God for nuclear weapons, amen. And I'm just praising, like, we don't stand with Israel. And I'm thinking, then what? Like,
yes, of course.
The modern-day nation of Israel was God's people. Well, God doesn't need America to defend them. God will defend it, right? And they're so mixed up. It just infuriates me that Christians, my people, are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. And they're getting all their philosophy from Fox News. They're getting their doctrine from a Scofield Reference Bible, which he was a heretic. He was a horrible person. There are several guys that helped edit the Scofield Bible and contributed to the footnotes in other sections. And when they saw the finished product, they were publicly preaching against Scofield and his newfound pre-trib rapture and Zionism, because they said, I didn't know I was part of that. I was just helping in other sections. So many of the names inside the Scofield, they reject Scofield. Scofield was a heretic. He didn't even want to use King James Bible. He wanted to use the Catholic Bible. His missing doctrine. These are all really, really big deals. I want to share this again. This is Pastor Tommy Murtry, the Spirit of Prophecy, and he's simulcasting right now. He's had several really good things on his podcast, and of course, there's the film coming out from Paul Whitberger, excellent filmmaker. Everything he does a great job on. And so this film, A City Lost, dealing with the temple, is coming out soon, and so I'm excited to see more on that. And any final thoughts, Pastor McMurtry, before we land the plane here for today?
Yeah, no, yeah, but definitely be watching for that documentary. I don't know if I'm uh, supposed to give some specifics on it, but it does look like there's a pretty major film studio that's planning on using the film, distributing it. I don't understand that world and how all that stuff works, but I was told we had a premiere for a prequel to the documentary that is so good. I wish this was on the internet, but he might need to wait because it's very controversial. Brother Paul, uh, he made a short, about a 20 or 30-minute video called "The Eye of the Storm," basically showing a lot of the activity surrounding the Temple Mount just since the Six-Day War in 1967, and it's intense stuff. There's some pretty violent images and things on there from a lot of the things that have recently happened, but it's one of those things that it is very controversial. We don't want to like sabotage the Temple documentary, which A City Lost. It's not controversial, but it is controversial. If you watch it, you're not going to know that it's controversial, but it is because when you question traditions, they freak out about it. And if you ask a lot of Jews over there about the possibility of the temple being in the city of David, they get very offended, even by the question. And I think, yeah, and I think it's just because they know this is just that's a dumb tradition. But yeah, in their world, tradition trumps everything. But yeah, be praying for that documentary. I think something's supposed to be happening really soon with that. I know. I think it was right around this time. The sound's supposed to be getting finished up.
Right.
But yeah, be praying for it, and that it really gets out there in a big way. I think
let's do this. Let me just have you back here in the near future as it gets closer. Let's get as much exposure and people, if they put it on their radar. And also, I'm going to just say, on the Law of Liberty channel, I've got several different podcasts. Here we are simulcasting now. I've been doing several different topics on this, especially heavily on prophecy, the King James Bible, salvation by faith. And on this podcast, coming up tomorrow, I do have a special guest. And let me show it here. No, this is a pastor that actually stormed the Masonic Lodge.
Oh, yeah.
And has Catholic Jesuits printing literature against his church in his region because his soul winners have been putting out literature about problems with Catholicism and other things. So that's going to be a fascinating interview. That will be tomorrow. So be back here on the Law of Liberty channel for that interview tomorrow. And again, if you're not subscribed to the Spirit of Prophecy, check it out. He's got some pretty good stuff. Pastor McMurtry, I can't thank you enough for coming on today. I do appreciate the stand that you're taking to things to the right. The King James Bible, once saved, always saved, Zionism, and some of these conversations need to happen. Thank you for standing against preterism, that everything has already been fulfilled, and looking forward to just have you back on sometime soon. So thanks for everybody that tuned in today. I hope this really has been a blessing and an eye-opener, and God bless us.
So speak ye, and so do, as they that shall be judged
Welcome to the fight, comrade. Claws out, and watch yourself.
Fools! You cannot stand against the might of Molog Ball! Cease your meddling, mortal. The Master has plans for the Red Guard.
What was that voice?
Quite the little fighter. We're not done with you yet.
Merrick ran off after some other Daedra. Get after him. Don't let her take him.